Okay, so I got a request to work some of this silver sheen obsidian. So here we go. I intentionally picked a clunky, nasty piece. Well, hopefully it's not too bad. And thanks to everyone who contributed to identifying this material. It seems like a lot of you guys are very experienced with obsidian. I can already see a few issues, one right there. And I don't know. I don't know if that's a defect or not. We'll see. This stuff appears to be rather brittle. But hopefully I won't snap it in half using the steel. I think I can see why some of you guys, or one of you guys, requested me to work this material. It feels like inexpensive art glass as far as the consistency and the brittleness. It's kind of a low grade material. Maybe why I wasn't able to get long flakes off of that nodule. That's a perfect platform, but I'm getting crushing. So that means the material is not tough or durable. It's probably actually easier to work a very thick piece like this than a very thin one. It looks like it overshoots easily, which is not a good thing. We got natural daylight today, so we should be able to see. I don't know if I mentioned that already. We should be able to see the details a little bit better. It's kind of a half-baked attempt at taking off that turtleback. The platform wasn't correct, or it wasn't optimal. All these platforms are way above center line. If I want to try to remove that turtleback, I hit here to go there. It's way above center line, so a lot of times it won't wrap around, but you never know. Sometimes it does. Yep, we just have a a defect and some cracks in here. Or I should say an ash pocket or something. Yeah, ash pocket, some cracks. Instead of calling that a defect, I think that's what it is. It's an ash pocket. I can still continue with this one. I'm going to create a platform here on this side to try to remove that turtle back from this side. I'm going to take my time with this because I can already feel like this is going to break easily. I don't want to hit this too hard because it may wrap around and overshoot. If a lot of you guys are getting stuff like this, like these steps right next to each other and all messed up, I just try to get it from the other side. If I have plenty of width, I'm not too worried about accidental overshots. So I'm gonna try to hit it from here and here. See how far those flakes go. Not too far. On a scale of 1 to 10, how careful am I being with this, or how rigorous or proper? I would say about a 6. I'm really not taking as much care as I should be. I think some people can notice that in my videos. Sometimes I get comments about why don't I develop platforms and that sort of thing, and I'm producing too much waste or whatever. Why do I not approach this with optimal efficiency in mind? It's mainly because I don't get attached to these pieces that I'm working on. I've learned not to become attached to these pieces, and I think I have about a 6 out of 10 chance of getting a successful point out of this until I can see that it's consistent, and then maybe it's 9 out of 10. I'll be more careful as I know how good the material is or how consistent it is. I don't see any defects in it, so, and I see less and less as I knap, so I become more and more careful as I go. Is that a good strategy? Probably the best strategy would be to treat everything with a 9 out of 10 level of concern and carefulness. That's the logical way to do it, and the thought experiment way of looking at it. But emotionally and practically, with practicality in mind, you really don't want to get attached or be too careful with pieces that are really bad. It lowers the frustration in the end. If you mess it up, you say to yourself, well, I really didn't put that much effort into it anyway. You know, there's a term for that. I don't know if it's defeatist or something like that. But I just don't, like I said, I don't put too much effort into the pieces that I think will fail easily. Now, when I'm doing a video on a piece like that, I will be very careful if I don't want to break it on video. But just doing it myself, sitting out back napping, seeing if I can make an arrowhead that day or whatever. I'll just go through many pieces. I'll start with the crappiest pieces I have first, and they'll probably break anyway, so I'll just get those out of the way. If they break, oh well, and then move on to the higher quality as I get more adapted to that, you know, that point style or that material. But that's just the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way, or I don't recommend it. But in case you're curious, on this one, I said 6 out of 10 concern. That would be if I was doing this on my own. But I would say maybe a 7 out of 10 because I've got this on video. I am taking a little bit of extra care that I don't break it on video. But the silver sheen stuff, if it's all like this, which it might all be similar, I wouldn't put much stock in the material if I wanted to make a lot of points in one day. There's other material that's more promising. And it's not responding very well to steel. Some materials respond very well and some don't. I just got a big old crush, or a step and a crushing area. It's not bad. I can get rid of that. But it would have been better if that flake had traveled over that hump. The way you overcome that, which when you're using steel, is don't bite off as much. I tried to bite off a lot that time. You can usually get better results with less less inward force and more downward, so that you're just peeling off the top. You might end up with a point that's thicker than what you normally would, but at least you won't break it or have that issue with the big old step fracture. A lot of times I'll just not care too much about what I'm knapping, because I know I can fix that step fracture later. So there's that too. So sometimes it's hard when you're watching somebody, whether they're using all of their skill or not. And it's also the same way with a finished point or a finished artifact. Was a napper using all of his skill to nap that artifact, or was he just casually doing it? And he could have done a lot better. I've watched some nappers and they'll struggle or something with a material, and you don't know if they are able to recover from their mistakes or not until they get to that point. They may not care, or they may be struggling with a 10 out of 10 amount of struggle, or they may be not struggling at all, like a 2 out of 10. They're just napping for the fun of it or whatever. I don't know if you know what I mean. I don't know if that makes sense. And the same goes with the finished product. If you look at an artifact, there are some that are very, very well made, right? So you can kind of tell that the napper had a lot of skill, or used a lot of his skill in making that. But you never know. That might have been just easy for the napper, since he may have done hundreds of those points already. So getting a beautiful flake pattern is not a big deal for him or her. It's assumed that most nappers were men back in the day, but you never know. It's been shown that women knew how to make blades from cores. There's some evidence of that from eyewitness accounts. Anyway, I'm distracting myself a little bit from this. I'm really not attacking this in the best way that I could. And maybe that's frustrating for some people too, to know that I'm not really putting all my effort into it. Some guys want to know the exact thought process that goes into it, so that's why I'm explaining that. Okay, I'm getting more serious about where I'm applying pressure and where I'm attacking these tough spots, and how I'm attacking them, which direction I need to flake. I'm still leaving it thick on purpose because it feels very, very much like art glass. And if you've ever napped art glass, you know that it's not a high quality material. As far as napping goes. The art glass, what I mean is the glass that's used for stained glass windows and for other things. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not an artist in glass, so glass blowers use glass that's easy to form into shapes, but trying to knap that type of glass usually is not any fun. And it's not high quality usually because it's not going to be put under stress. It's the type of glass that's used for ornaments and decoration, so to speak. Okay, this is when I have to be very careful toward the end of this shaping, because if I don't get that turtle back out of there, or if I don't get those lumps out, and if I don't get rid of this steppy area that I messed up earlier, I'm not going to be able to get a point out of it. So I have to be very careful. And then I can relax if it's working out okay. I can go back to relaxing and not worrying too much about what I need to do. Just shape it and notch it, and that'll be it. The edge is still very irregular, and at this stage I normally don't leave it this irregular. That was a nice flake. See if I can do that again right next to it. Passive pressure. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. See if I can get rid of that lump in the middle without overshooting it. Now, is there a method to prevent overshot? Well, I'm just using less pressure than I think I need, and it did fall short. The flake fell short of where I wanted it to go. So I did use less pressure. So you had to use a minimum of pressure or percussion force when you're afraid of overshot. Whatever you think would be the minimum to get you there. Whereas sometimes you can really put a lot of force into a flake and not worry too much about it going too far, especially on poor material. You know, poor material, you can put a lot of force into it, and since it's so difficult to flake in the first place, it's not going to go very far. But in this case, it looks like flakes will travel So overshot is something to be careful of. I took the tip off earlier. I'm going to try not to do that again. So it's actually getting pretty small. Just for size comparison to the last arrowhead, it's not going to be as long and probably not as wide either. And I started out with a pretty substantial piece, but what cost me was the step fracture there on this side. It cost me a little bit of width. But not too much. Mainly what cost me the width was the thickness of it. It was had a very big turtleback on it. Okay. I'm going to continue to thin this down with steel. Because I think it can be done. I do have some aluminum pressure flakers that might be better with this stuff, or copper. I do have a couple of copper ones. I have been wanting to do comparison videos, you know, very technical comparison videos between copper and antler and aluminum and steel. But I have yet to make an exact set of each. I mean, a matching set of each, so that the weight and the other variables are very similar between the different tools, and see how they compare, and see how well they do when they're equalized. But I haven't done that yet. It takes a long time to get accomplished. Maybe someday. But I will break out some alternate materials occasionally, and I think I'll do a video coming up here soon on spalling with different materials. Another spalling video with different percussion tools. Different material. Okay. I think I'm going to have to leave this fairly thick because it feels like it's going to break. It's slippery like glass. It's not quite as non-slippery as dacite. I would say mid-range between dacite and obsidian. That's what this feels like. Okay, I think I'm running out of time, so I'll continue in the next video.